there's a lot of really crazy creative things that you can do with the Teenage Engineering OP-1 field. And probably one of the most interesting from a music creation standpoint is sequences, because through sequences, we're able to surpass our meager playing abilities and explore melodies that you wouldn't necessarily get with just a traditional keyboard. And Matt is here repping Teenage Engineering. And
hello.
Matt is going to show us some of the weird creative sequences of the OP-1. What is your fave?
Oh, that's a tough one, actually. I mean, we'll look at the list, shall we? I'll just bring it up there. So we've got a few different ones that we can work with. I think for working with melody and stuff like that, probably, I'd say Endless. I quite like Endless because it's just a very straightforward step-by-step sequencer.
Can you show us the magic?
Yeah, absolutely. So if we go there. So what you're presented with is a number. So that's the amount of steps, the direction, and there's a few other things we'll get into in a sec. But what it allows you to do, because I'm not like the best keyboard player in the world.
Get out.
Hold down a key.
What?
That's something that I clearly did for a different video or something.
Wait, okay.
So it's polyphonic as well.
Oh, yes. Okay.
But no, it's fine. So as we're kind of, let's just put it somewhere more sort of like in the middle of the keyboard, I guess. To program this is simply a case of you hold shift and then you can, at this point, you might need to work out where your notes are. So, and you, as you put in the steps, you're just hitting the keys that you want. And then to add spaces or gaps, you just keep holding shift, but then press the arrow key.
It's a little right arrow.
Yes. Yeah. And you can go back if you need to change anything.
Oh, that is actually really nice.
We can then.
Oh, yeah.
And then you've immediately got something.
Yeah, that sounds legit. And you can change the sound, obviously. Like, it's not married to any one sound.
No. So if we go back into the synth mode here, and then we can hold shift and press one of these numbers and choose a preset. I think actually as we go through it, we can probably... get a bit Daft Punk there.
Yeah, that's actually pretty good.
You can just audition a whole load of different presets, or you can kind of get into the settings of it and mess with the different parameters.
While the sequencer like plays back.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, you know, my sort of outsider's opinion of that is it's a bit more of a SH101E style, you know, standard step input, one at a time.
Yeah.
But with this very nice ability, you can go back and change.
Yeah.
That's actually not something you tend to find on a lot of trad 101s.
Yeah, you'd probably have to get it wrong and then go, I mean, it can be a little bit like that with this. Just because once you've gone past a certain amount of steps, it's hard to sort of go back and maybe take one out. So if I've gone over the step count sometimes, forgetting that you start with 0 there. And
you, once you've recorded a sequence, can you go back and edit a note, or do you have to kind of start again?
You have to start
again. You do it as one pass, but in that one pass, you can still go back.
Yeah, so like if the very first note was wrong, you could just skip back through all those steps and get to the first one and change it again.
Wicked. What is the next sort of odd creative sequence that you have?
I mean, we could go...
And by the way, how many of these are there?
I don't know off the top of my head. 1, 2,
3,
3, 4, 5, 6, 7.
Well done.
There's 7 of them.
We can count. We can count to 7. That much is true.
I'm really bad with small screens and counting. We could go with Tombola as we've landed there. This one's a bit more of just a generative type thing where you just pop your notes in. And then they bounce around. So
can we get a different, like more trad analog sound maybe?
Yeah, let's while it's running, I'll just put like another couple of notes in, because that is quite an odd thing we've got going here. So
just to clarify, what's happened here is that you've basically got a tombola that's rolling around and your notes are like physical objects bouncing around inside the tombola.
That's quite a nice sound.
Oh yeah.
Let's go with just turn the patch volume up a little bit.
You were mentioning before we recorded that there's a really lovely new reverb in this.
And that would go quite well with this, wouldn't it? It's actually switched on already, but we've got something modulating the mix. So let's switch that off just for a second. Turn the distance up. This is Mother. And the synth engine's new as well. It's called Dimension. So it's sort of more traditional, sort of subtractive style synthesis. If we bring the...
I love the like visualizations.
So this control is doing the kind of tonal balance. So we're introducing a bit more high end, whereas before it was a lot darker. And it may not work quite so well, but you do have a gate on there as well.
For doing your sort of Phil Collins booshy snares?
Yeah. So I think because the release on this is quite long, you're probably not going to hear it cutting out quite so much. So we'll come back to that in another video or another point. But
that sounds
it's
really
quite
pretty,
full featured.
Yeah. It's like, can you go back to the sequence?
Yeah, absolutely.
So look what's happening. Your notes just stay present and bounce around. And because of the nature of the fact they're bouncing around under physics, that's ever changing.
Yeah, and you can change those physics as well. So you can change it to have a higher bounce. So they really ping around.
Oh, yeah.
It gets a bit more intense that way. You can also, we don't want to lose them yet. That one opens up the walls of the Tombola so you can kind of clear it and start again.
You could open them up a tiny smidge so there would be a likelihood that you'd lose one.
So like we've got the gravity up higher, so they're kind of sticking a bit more, but we can go even heavier and they start to fall out.
Last one, mate.
And if I turn it down so it's a bit more like, I guess, space, they're now taking their time to bounce around. Oh, yeah. Oh, God.
Let's get more black notes. Don't lose them.
And they also sound when they bounce into each other as well. So you get the two together.
Oh, then they make a little chord, or like a two note or a three note if that happens.
Those two went together, those two.
That's so nice. It's like, it's generative, which is to say it's the style of music that you create a system and allow it to play out.
Yeah, you set your parameters and away it goes kind of thing.
Like the direct opposite of what we just did in the first one.
Yeah.
So cool.
Yeah.
I know this is like this was present in the original OP-1, but I still think it's like one of the coolest.
And so was Endless as well. Both of those were in the original.
Is there something newer?
Yes.
Like, what else have we got?
There is. So one that we have here, which I don't know that I necessarily would call it a sequencer, but it's in that section of it, is Hold, which is essentially just allowing you to, let me just check this is a poly patch actually, I think it probably is. Yeah, so we go back. So we put in a chord, it's just going to hold it. I did have a gig once where we needed a drone to run through, and this wasn't part of the original OP-1, and so we had to use Endless one step and then really soften the attack and release of it so that it just kept going through the song. But now you've got this mode where essentially you've got a sustain pedal. I think I'm right in saying it will automatically hold from when you start, but you can sort of switch it off as well with the orange encoder there.
Would you be able to like resample internally from that? I'm wondering if like as a way of like building a chord, then sampling it into the internal sampler. Is that possible?
Yeah. Well, I mean, you could
use it for that.
Yeah, so where we go back to the tape, we've got something else there, so I'll avoid that. I'll just take that off. Ew, sorry, everyone. We'll just find a spot to start off. And then I've just skipped through the tape.
Yeah.
And then you've got your in and out point for the loop. And then holding shift and moving the arrows goes between essentially what would be... Yeah. So with that resolution, that would be a bar that you're skipping around. But you can change it to beats as well. So you could just kind of get that lined up. You'll notice as well, if you listen closely, the sound changes. And this might be part of a different video, but there are different tape modes now on the OP-1F as well. So this one's the vintage 4-track, so it introduces a little bit of saturation, just as an old school tape might, or if you push sort of like tape. So then you can record to the channel there.
I didn't want to speak while you were recording, as if it was going to pick me up, which it definitely it could.
It could do. You can switch the mic on. So then we switch that off, and then we go back to the tape here, and it's got it recorded.
What was I listening to? There was someone who was talking about the power of just chords. Oh, it was Kate Bush. Kate Bush when she was doing Hounds of Love, that album. She was talking about using like the big reverb, like I want to say she had the Quantec room simulator, I think.
Okay.
Like really nice 80s reverbs. But she was like, oh, we would make chords and just that initial chord with loads of reverb would become the basis of a track. Because it's, as you just did there, it's like, it's a vibe, right? It's like you just go to a place
it's
and then
a scene setter and you build around it.
Exactly. Because then you'd layer on other melodies and bits. So that is really cool. What is next? Something. What would you say is the weirdest of all? Tombola wasn't weird enough.
Well, I think that would probably have to be Sketch, which again was on the original one that they've brought forwards to this one. Sketch, it's like a Etch-a-Sketch.
Okay. I don't think I've not seen this.
The result of which is you've got a sort of X and Y to draw, and you can use
Standard.
them. Sorry, I'm going to block the screen here a little bit, but you can or try not to. You can use it to sort of step right up, and then you can also move it around without drawing. So,
oh wow,
I'm going to turn off the.
It's a graphical score. You know, like Stockhausen and Daphne Oram.
And then you can just add in stuff as you're going.
I think the Stockhausen did graphic scores. Daphne Oram definitely did with her machine.
This is gonna.
What is happening here? I don't mean that in a disparaging way.
So
I'm happy that
the lines are where the notes will start, but then it's obviously sort of time
pitch shift
in the X and Y and is pitch. And when you get two lines sort of running together, I think that will then create a couple of notes together. So but it's not quantized to pitches at all. It's just free
you
form.
Could do like the THX like deep note where like loads of things sort of coalesce into one tone.
You could. Or you might spend a little time drawing it in. I know that there's people who probably do Etch-a-Sketch art and stuff like that. So if anyone out there is good at that, I mean, you'd be away with this thing.
Let's look at one more. What's your final sort of suggestion of a sequencer?
Final one so pattern is more like a grid. I mean, that I would say is better for drums. So maybe not on this particular video. I guess Arpeggio is probably a good one because everyone's, who knows synths is probably familiar with an arpeggiator of some kind.
Yeah.
And this one's quite a nice one just in the sense that you've got different modes that you can use. I'm just going to set it running there. So you can obviously change the speed. You can... let's just check. Should we change the sound quickly?
Yeah, go.
Just to do something. That'll do. So you've got different trigger modes. So even though I've put in a chord there, you can sort of have the standard arpeggiator style thing, but then I always forget it. Every single one that's there, but there's adding in like different intervals from a scale.
Okay.
There's ones which add in octaves, and you can kind of reach something quite interesting. You can also change the way that it triggers as well. So you can, with these dots here, you can add in like skips and pauses and stuff like that.
Oh,
and then hold.
I'm so sorry.
So I've just put another chord in there.
How do you show me how you change the like patterns?
So patterns would be with the grey encoder or white on the original one. So that's all of them in, missing the last one. You've also got, if you hold shift, you get a second set of, and this applies for quite a few of the different sequences, that you get different things that you can change on shift. So pause, I think I'm right in saying it just skips the note, whereas there's a playthrough where it then just creates the cycle to be those parts of the arpeggio. So where it would add the intervals in different modes, it might miss like, I don't know, the second and then go straight to the fifth or the third. It's all in the manual, that part of it. It's quite a difficult one to remember because it's type 0, type 1, type 2. So it doesn't necessarily say outright, but you can hear it as well.
And so how do you get the different modes where it would add different intervals and things?
So that was this type 1, type 2.
And can you sort of evolve it as it plays? Can you add to it as it's playing back, or do you reset and start again?
Let's try it. I think it does reset. But
Yeah,
I mean, if you
as
are
it
holding
does.
at least one note,
Can we get a brighter sound, maybe with more reverb? To play us out with something,
go on.
some blissful ambience, I think is the order of the day. That's exactly
Sorry,
what I meant.
you're not getting it.
Not today, my friend. Oh, that's nice.
I think actually, if we take that noise and we make it a bit more attacky,
Oh, yeah.
and then we give it a bit more of the reverb here.
Oh, yeah, that's nice. That could play out into a reverb wash. Lovely. Oh, nice, yeah. And to clarify here, you can mess with this as you record into your little tape tracks.
Yeah,
You
absolutely.
basically perform with these settings that we've been messing with, and create your own little mini jam.
Yeah, I mean, certainly the way that this works to record your ideas is that it would encourage you to kind of get to a place where you're happy with what's going on. Let's get out of the loop again. Just go through that. Sort of hit record and go, and then
Print it.
yeah. And then afterwards, you can always go back and cut out the sections that you like, or you can rearrange it, pitch shift it. You can resample it with some master effects across it, because obviously once it's recorded to the tape, it's taking the reverb and the sound with it. So it's very flexible up until the point of recording, and then your audio is your audio. Yeah.
I like that though. It's a sort of, it's a destructive process. And the whole idea is if you weren't totally sure, if you weren't feeling very creative, just start messing and things will emerge, and then you can use them as a starting point.
Exactly.
Awesome. Matt, thank you so much for showing me your OP-1 field and the weird sequences that it contains. Links below, by the way, to the OP-1 field. Please subscribe if you enjoyed this video, and we'll see you next time.